In the quiet rhythm of everyday life, character does not announce itself with grand gestures. It whispers in the smallest, most ordinary moments, when no one is watching, when nothing important seems to be at stake. Have you ever noticed how a single offhand remark, a brief delay, or an unguarded reaction can suddenly show you who a person truly is? That is not coincidence. That is the hidden language of human nature revealing itself before anyone has time to rehearse. The real danger lies not in the obvious betrayals, but in missing these small signs and allowing the wrong people too close to your time, your trust, and your peace. Over months and years, those overlooked signals shape relationships, careers, and the quiet shape of your own life. Think about it. If these reflections on the subtle patterns that expose true character stir something familiar in you, stay with me until the end. The fifth sign touches the places where most of us have felt the deepest sting, one about what people reveal when they believe no one is keeping score. If you value this kind of steady, unflinching look at the quiet rules that govern people and timing, I invite you to subscribe to Guiguzi Strategic Wisdom and walk this path together. Welcome back to Guiguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind this video. Today, we are turning our attention to 5 small signs that reveal a person's true character. Not because we are searching for perfection in others, but because wise people have always understood that the smallest actions, repeated over time, tell the truest story. These signs are not dramatic. They are ordinary. Yet they expose the inner life more clearly than any polished speech or public performance ever could. Let's begin with the first sign: how someone treats those who can do nothing for them. There is a strategic truth as old as human interaction itself. The way a person behaves toward those beneath their notice reveals the steadiness of their inner compass. In modern life, this appears in the brief, unguarded moments when power is uneven. The waiter who brings the wrong order, the receptionist who cannot speed up the process, the stranger in line who moves too slowly. The person of solid character meets these moments with patience and basic respect. The one whose character is still forming reveals irritation, dismissal, or quiet contempt. The psychology here is simple yet revealing. When we believe no advantage can be gained, the mask slips. Our instinct for self-interest no longer needs to perform politeness. What remains is the raw habit of the inner life, whether it is rooted in composure or in the quiet demand that the world bend to our convenience. You see it clearest in everyday settings. A colleague who is warm and attentive in meetings with superiors, but short-tempered with the intern who asks a simple question. Or in family gatherings where one relative speaks kindly to those whose approval they seek, yet cuts off the older aunt who can offer nothing in return. In budding relationships, it shows up during small shared errands, how they treat the person behind the counter, the delivery driver, the neighbor who needs a hand. This is where most people get it wrong. They focus on how someone treats them personally and miss the pattern that repeats when they are not the center of attention. The real question is not whether the person is charming to you. The real question is whether that charm is selective or consistent. The consequence unfolds slowly but surely. You begin to trust someone based on how they make you feel, only to watch them erode the dignity of others in ways that eventually circle back to you. Over time, you realize the respect they showed you was conditional, tied to what you could offer. When your usefulness changes, so does their tone. It is not because they are cruel by nature. It is because their instinct for status or convenience has never been disciplined by a deeper sense of shared humanity. And in human nature, Undisciplined instinct always finds its way to the surface in small, unguarded moments. The wise person does not judge harshly in a single instance. They simply note the pattern and remember that true character is most visible when the audience is smallest. These first quiet signals of how we treat the unnoticed prepare us for the second sign, the way someone speaks about others when those others are not present. There is a pattern the strategically minded have always observed. The tongue that loosens too freely in private reveals a mind that cannot hold its own center. In our daily world, this appears as the casual criticism, the subtle dig, the unnecessary detail shared about a mutual acquaintance who is absent. The words may be wrapped in concern or humor, yet they carry the same undertone. Someone else is being diminished, so the speaker can feel elevated or connected. The psychology runs deep. Human beings crave alliance and status within groups. Speaking about others in their absence creates an instant sense of us against them, a quick bond built on shared judgment. It satisfies the instinct for social positioning without the risk of direct confrontation. For some, it has become the primary currency of closeness. I trust you enough to speak freely about them. You encounter this most often in friendships that have settled into routine, in family conversations around the table, or in the quiet corners of the workplace where gossip travels faster than official news. A new friend shares a story about a mutual acquaintance that feels uncomfortably personal. A relative offers commentary on another family member that crosses from observation into something sharper. In professional settings, it surfaces during lunch breaks when one colleague dissects another's mistake with unnecessary relish. Do you see the turning point here? The person who speaks this way about others will one day speak this way about you. Closeness built on shared criticism does not deepen trust. It plants the quiet fear that you are next. The consequence is not immediate drama, but a slow erosion of safety. You begin to censor yourself, to hold back the vulnerable parts of your life because you sense the same looseness could be turned on you. Over time, the relationship feels lighter on the surface yet heavier underneath, until one day you realize you have been trading authenticity for the illusion of alliance. It is not because they lack loyalty in the moment. It is because their need for connection or superiority has never been tempered by restraint. And restraint, in the realm of speech, is one of the rarest forms of self-mastery. The wise person does not withdraw from every conversation that touches on others. They simply listen for the tone beneath the words and adjust the depth of their own sharing accordingly. We have moved through the treatment of the unnoticed and the looseness of private speech. Now we come to the third sign, how someone responds when their own small plans are disrupted or when a minor inconvenience arises. Now we come to the third sign, how someone responds when their own small plans are disrupted or when a minor inconvenience arises. There is a strategic insight that the smallest interruptions reveal the steadiness of the inner life more clearly than any grand test ever could. In modern life, this appears in the everyday moments when things do not go exactly as expected. The reservation that is delayed by 15 minutes, the meeting that runs long and pushes back their afternoon, the rain that forces a change in outdoor plans. The person of mature character meets these moments with quiet acceptance and a calm adjustment. The one whose character is still unformed shows a flash of irritation, blame, or a subtle tightening that reveals how tightly they cling to control. The psychology is rooted in our instinct for order and the quiet desire that life bend to our expectations. When nothing significant is at stake, the mask of composure slips. What surfaces is the raw habit of the inner life, whether it is trained in patience or ruled by the need to have things unfold precisely on our terms. small disruptions become mirrors. They show whether self-mastery has taken root or whether ego still flinches at the slightest deviation. You see it clearest in ordinary shared experiences. A friend who suggested a weekend hike becomes short-tempered when the trailhead parking lot is fuller than expected and they must wait. Or in family life, where one member's carefully planned dinner is thrown off by a child's sudden homework crisis, and the reaction exposes years of unspoken tension. In the workplace, it surfaces during a minor schedule shift or a delayed delivery that affects no one's long-term goals, yet still triggers visible frustration. This is where most people get it wrong. They dismiss these flashes as just a bad moment or stress from the day. The real question is not whether the person is usually pleasant. The real question is whether small disorder reveals a steady center or an unsteady one. The consequence is quieter than we expect, yet it compounds over time. You begin to walk more carefully around their plans, anticipating the tension that small changes will create. You hesitate to suggest spontaneous ideas because you sense the cost. Slowly, the relationship loses its ease. You realize you are managing their comfort as much as your own, and the natural flow of closeness begins to feel like work. It is not because they lack good intentions. It is because their instinct for control has never been tempered by the deeper discipline of acceptance. And in human nature, the untempered control always reveals itself first in the small things. The wise person does not avoid people who have occasional off days. They simply note the pattern and understand that true character shows itself most honestly when the stakes feel low. These three signs of how we treat the unnoticed, how we speak of the absent, and how we meet small disruption prepare us for the fourth sign, the way someone handles being gently corrected or told no in a low-stakes situation. There is a pattern the strategically minded have always recognized. The ego that cannot bend without breaking reveals a fragility that will one day cost everyone around it. In our daily world, this appears in the small moments when someone's idea, suggestion, or minor habit is questioned without hostility. A comment like, "That route might add 20 minutes. Would you mind if we took the other?" Or, "I think we agreed on something slightly different last time." The mature response is thoughtful consideration or simple acceptance. The revealing response is defensiveness, a quick justification, or a subtle shift in tone that turns the exchange into something heavier. The psychology here runs on the deep human need to protect our sense of competence and worth. When no real power is on the line, the instinct to defend the self still flares, because the inner life has not yet learned that being wrong about small things does not diminish our value. For some, every minor correction feels like a threat to the image they hold of themselves. The reaction is automatic, protective, and often disproportionate. You encounter this pattern in friendships that feel close on the surface, in long-term marriages where small decisions are negotiated daily, or in professional collaborations where ideas are exchanged freely. A colleague offers a small adjustment to your shared document, and the response is an immediate, slightly sharper defense rather than an open pause. In family settings, a parent suggests a different approach to a routine chore, and the adult child reacts as though their entire judgment is being attacked. Do you see the turning point here? The person who cannot receive a small no or a small correction without friction will one day struggle to receive larger truths. Closeness with this pattern teaches you to withhold honest feedback, to soften every observation until the relationship becomes polite but no longer real. The consequence settles in as a quiet loss of depth. Conversations stay safe but shallow. You stop offering your genuine perspective because you sense the cost. Over time, the connection feels lighter, yet strangely heavier, because you are carrying the unspoken weight of managing their sensitivity instead of simply being yourself. It is not because they are unkind. It is because their self-image has never been anchored in something steadier than the need to always appear right. And in human nature, an unanchored ego always reveals its cracks in the smallest pressures. The wise person does not stop offering feedback. They simply calibrate it to what the pattern has shown them and protect their own clarity in the process. We have moved through the treatment of the unnoticed, the looseness of private speech, the response to small disruption, and the reaction to gentle correction. Now we arrive at the fifth sign, the one that often lands with the most personal weight because it lives in the realm of small, repeated commitments. How someone follows through on the ordinary promises they make when nothing grand is at stake. There is an ancient understanding that the small yes repeated without fail builds the foundation for every larger trust. In our lived reality, this appears as the person who says they will send the article they mentioned, call at the agreed time, or pick up the small item you asked for on their way. These are not life-changing favors. They are the quiet threads of reliability. The person of solid character treats them with the same seriousness they would give to bigger matters. The one whose character is still forming lets them slip, forgets, or offers casual excuses as though the small commitment carried no weight at all. The psychology is layered. Some people genuinely intend to follow through in the moment they speak, yet their inner life lacks the discipline to prioritize what feels minor. Others have learned that small promises cost little to make and little to break, so they use them to maintain connection without investing real effort. The instinct is comfort and the appearance of helpfulness without the follow-through that would actually require self-control. You see it clearest in the places that shape our daily sense of safety. The friend who repeatedly says, "I'll text you the contact," and never does. The family member who promises to handle a simple errand and then acts surprised when reminded. The colleague who agrees to share a small update by end of day and lets it drift. Even in marriage or close partnership, it can show up in the repeated, "I'll take care of that tomorrow," that quietly piles up until one person is carrying the weight of both. I remember a season some years ago when I was navigating a particularly demanding stretch of work, and a longtime acquaintance offered to handle one small but important administrative task for me. Something as ordinary as mailing a set of documents that needed to reach a certain office by a deadline. They said it with warmth and sincerity over coffee in a quiet neighborhood cafe. Weeks passed. Gentle reminders went unanswered. When I finally followed up, the tone shifted to mild surprise that I was still waiting. The task eventually fell back on me. But the larger lesson remained. The small promise had revealed a pattern I had overlooked for years. That acquaintance and I drifted naturally apart, not in anger, but in a clearer understanding of what each of us could actually rely on. This is where most people get it wrong. They tell themselves the small things do not matter. They excuse the missed follow-through as forgetfulness or busyness. The real question is not whether the person means well in the moment. The real question is whether their actions ever match the ease with which the words were spoken. The consequence is one of the most painful because it touches the slow accumulation of time. You begin to lower your expectations, to handle more things yourself, to protect your plans from depending on them. The relationship may continue, but something essential has thinned. You feel the quiet loneliness of realizing that even the ordinary threads of reliability are missing. Over months and years, this pattern can leave you more guarded, more self-reliant, and sometimes more alone than you ever intended to be. It is not because they set out to disappoint. It is because their discipline has never been trained on the small things that actually build trust over time. And in human nature, consistency in the ordinary is rarer and more revealing than any grand gesture. The wise person does not demand perfection in every detail. They simply learn to watch the pattern of small follow-through and adjust the weight they place on larger promises accordingly. Now let us bring this down from philosophy into the texture of lived reality. The late evenings when you check your messages and realize the small thing you were counting on was never handled. The family weekends that shift because one person's casual commitment quietly fell away. The work projects that stall while you wait for the ordinary update that never arrives. The cost is measured in the quiet trade-offs you make. The moments of self-doubt when you wonder why you keep hoping. The slow realization that while you were waiting for consistency from others, life was asking you to choose your own clarity instead of holding on to unreliable threads. Misjudging these small signs does not just bruise trust. It can quietly reshape your relationships, your sense of timing, and the version of yourself you allow to remain open to others. So what truly reveals a fake person? It is not the loud failure or the obvious betrayal. It is the small, repeated patterns that show a gap between appearance and inner discipline. The way they treat those who cannot help them. The looseness of their private words. The flinch at minor disruption. The defensiveness at gentle correction. The casual neglect of ordinary commitments. What should a wise person actually watch for? These quiet signals, observed without drama and without haste, because they speak long before any grand promise is ever made. Why do so many people mistake performance for sincerity? Because we long for connection. We want to believe the surface warmth is the full story. Our desire for belonging makes us generous with trust, even when the small signs ask us to pause and look closer. The mature person is not a saint, not perfect, not free of their own moments of inconsistency or impatience. They are simply someone who has learned what matters. They know what to protect, their time, their peace, their ability to move through life with clear eyes. They know what to let go of, relationships that drain more than they build. They know when to wait, until the small patterns have spoken across many ordinary moments. And they know when to act, when the evidence is steady and the cost of ignoring it has become too high. Look at reality for what it is. Human nature has not changed. Instinct still seeks comfort, ego still seeks protection, and desire still speaks faster than discipline. The difference lies in who notices the small signs and who chooses to honor what they reveal. Thank you for staying with me until the end. These reflections are not meant to make you suspicious of every ordinary interaction. They are meant to sharpen your sight, so the people you do let close are the ones whose small actions match the warmth of their words. This has been Guiguzi Strategic Wisdom. I'm David Welbeck, the writer behind these videos. I'll see you in the next one. If these ideas landed with you, if they clarified a situation you are living right now, consider subscribing if you have not already. Share the video with someone whose path might feel steadier for having heard it. And if you feel moved, leave a comment about your own thoughts or experience. Your reflections keep this conversation alive. Until then, watch the small things. Respect the quiet patterns, and walk wisely.